It started in 1999. I was a suburban soccer mom. So I had 4 kids. They were little. I was homeschooling them. And my husband at the time came back from the spiritual retreat with this weird chart. And something happened when I looked at that chart. Like, it was almost as if a bell went off inside of my soul. And I really just stood with this chart and started to cry. And when I really sat with it for a minute, something in me knew I had to learn everything I could about this chart. At that time, the only place you could go learn about it in the United States was in Sedona. So we put the house on the market. We sold it in 2 weeks, packed up the car, packed up the kids, drove from Houston to Sedona. And as soon as we got there, my youngest son had an ear infection. I took him to the pediatrician, came out of the pediatrician's office with this kid on my hip, and across the hallway there was a door that had the human design symbol on it. I thought, well, I'm gonna go in there. So I opened the door. Inside this small office, there was this giant desk and this tiny little woman sitting behind the desk, and she said to me, "So, did you come for the job?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." So she hired me right there on the spot. This was actually the headquarters for Human Design America at the time. The woman behind the desk was Marianne Winiger. And I worked for Human Design America for a couple of years. I had the honor and the privilege at that time of studying with the founder of Human Design, Ra Urahu, who came through and did live workshops and trainings. And I got access to all of the pre-recorded materials and actually did some curriculum development while I was there. That kind of started the journey. I think about the question a lot, like, why did the chart call me? And not just me, because the chart calls my students too, and it calls people at expos. There's something about that chart being a visual archetype of some kind, that it triggers in us or it stirs in us some kind of a memory. And many people, I think, when they encounter that memory, that knowingness, they just know that they have to learn. And whether they learn about human design or whether they're learning about themselves and remembering who they came here to be and their unique role in the world, that chart triggers something, and it certainly triggered something in me as my journey continued to reveal more and more about the system to me. So when I got to Sedona and I started working with human design and started taking courses, one of the things that happened was I never really had to study and learn. I already kind of knew. I knew what all the parts were about. I knew what all the gates are about. It just felt like it was in me. My journey over the last, more than 2 decades with human design has continued to be like that. It's almost like seeing that chart for the first time for me. And this sounds weird, but at least for me, it feels like it seeded something inside of me. And that seed, the essence of, I think, the intention of the chart is to help the world evolve by helping people remember who we really are. It feels like it drops into people, it lives in people, and it blossoms in people and helps them really fulfill and step into the power of who they really are. With my background as a nurse, as a mom, as a midwife, as a coach, I wanted to help people explore, how do we go from you realizing that maybe who you thought you need to be or who you should be isn't really who you're designed to be. How do we bridge that gap between those 2 identities? Because your life gets better when you live true to who you are, but it's not like you can just click your heels together magically and get there. There's work involved. There's support that's needed in that process. There's reframing, and there's a process of regaining sovereignty over your narrative that has to happen. And that requires education and support and love and care, and not just a box of tissues and bye-bye.